I'll watch The Room. Leanna Ashley is based in I mean she lives like here near me, but her office is in Cameron, North Carolina.
I'll
So if
watch
you
The Room.
get um those military moves, she is a good one for that. But I met Leanna because her husband is my buddy, and we have been buddies for a long time. We used to work at ski school together, like back when I was like in middle school and like beginning of high school. And we like connected on Instagram because she was doing property management for, and she'll give you this breakdown. They have a like family property management company. And I sat down with her one day and she told me all the things that she does. And I was like, I'm exhausted listening to you. I don't know how you do this. And I do a lot during the day. So I was like, first off, let me introduce you to this little thing called EXP because I feel like it might could help you with some of your tasks. But secondly, she is very, very integrated in the property management side of things. And her sales team does benefit a lot from that relationship and the pipeline that property management can provide. And so and I think most of us on this call are at EXP, so I think I can talk a little bit more openly just about the property management element. There is a workaround of property management is something that you want to integrate in your business. It's certainly doable. And Leanna's a product of that. But we just thought it might be good to be like, hey, here's a little property management crash course. Leanna does have a coaching program around property management. So if it's something you want to dive into a little bit deeper, you're welcome to do that. And I know you'll be a great sounding board too with your property management background. So I think this would be a great call. And I'm excited to hear what she has to share. And if you have questions, I think just dive in, like just ask them
Yeah.
one time. That would be the best thing.
Well, thank you so much, Anna, for having me. This is my first time kind of leading a call, actually, ever. So, bear with me. I tend to talk fast when I'm nervous. And also, feel free to chime in, drop things in the chat if you have questions. I'm going to try to make this as relatable as possible because I know some people have nothing to do with property management and they've never, what is it? How does this apply to me? So I'm going to try to reel that in and how I use it in my sales business. So a little bit about myself, as Anna mentioned, I started my real estate career. I got licensed in 2014. We have a family-owned property management business, McQuilkin Real Estate, that is based out of the Fort Bragg area. My in-laws started it because he's retired military. And so that's where I got my license. And I did not like property management. I did not like the area, Cameron, Sanford. So I moved to Raleigh and started working for Remax as just like a little admin person. And then I realized I needed benefits. So then I went back to corporate world in my cubicle where I don't belong, but whatever. And then once I had our first son, Knox, I was like, I don't want that cubicle life. I need something that's more flexible, so I can kind of be that work from home mom or whatever the case may be. So I jumped back on with the family business in 2019. And again, property management honestly is not my passion. It just has become an integrated part of my business. So what I realized with our business was we did do sales. We had our real estate licenses, but our marketing was crap. Nobody knew that we also did sales. So we would oftentimes get oh, we listed with Remax because we just kind of wanted somebody more experienced, or we didn't know that you did sales. So we went from like doing like 2 transactions a year. Before I joined on to now doing more. So I really jumped in to bridge that gap. I created newsletters, things. These are basic things now that we just did not do before. We were independent, just rolling with the punches. So I created the newsletter, raised awareness of our services with sales, put those few reviews that we had on there, and really hammered that down, like, hey, we do this and we know your property best, so let's partner and let's get these homes sold. So That's kind of what started. And then, of course, 2020 happened. So I went from selling like a handful of houses a year to when the sorry, the shitstorm happened, the Wild Wild West happened. We, I did about 30 transactions strictly from property management because that was the time to sell. And then the next year, about 40 transactions came from property management. But that was my only business. I didn't prospect otherwise. So if it came to me, it came to me. But I did not go hunting and pecking for deals. So that's also kind of like a new aspect for me. Is anybody on this call that is interested in property management, has property management experience, or if you have clients that kind of are like, hey, we don't know if we need to rent or sell, have you kind of tried to cross that path with any clients before?
So I have some property management experience. I actually worked with a firm in Emerald Isle, Atlantic Beach, like the Southern Outer Banks, for 15 years.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, I started out in the office doing maintenance stuff and then kind of worked through all of the departments of the company. And it was a fairly large company. We managed anywhere between like 550 to 750 short-term rentals and like 400 long-term rentals at any time. But we also had two offices and like 500 people on staff. So it
Yeah.
was, yeah,
Well, that's great. We
yeah.
don't have much experience in the short term rental side of things. We've only done long term, and we've maintained kind of that 150 door mark, mainly because we're very picky about the properties we bring on. We also have our certain criteria, and we didn't have the team. So since joining EXP, like even though of course that was for sales, I was able to implement so many more ideas and practices into our property management business that now we're finally in a place where we can really grow without drowning. Because before it was just us, our family, we're all working 24/7. We weren't leveraging anything. And it was just nonsense. So kudos to EXP and this group and Anna for kind of shaping that and transforming that business. So we now have new business goals for property management. So in total, I've probably sold about 110 properties from if it was a tenant, a homeowner, we've had homeowners who we managed, then we bought and sold with them, tenants who bought, then sold that house, then bought a new one, all over the years. So it's really been a very good lead source. So I don't do Zillow leads or anything like that because I feel like that's kind of like my Zillow flex, if you will, and it's for a cheaper commission or referral fee cut. So I really tried to leverage that. So my advice to you as real estate agents, oftentimes, especially now where the market still is kind of finicky and you may have sellers who need to move, but they just can't sell or they're really running into that issue. But having that property management conversation and finding a property management partner in your area that you can team up with, you can say, hey, let's do the sales numbers, let's do the property management numbers, the rental numbers, and see what works best for you and bring that to the listing appointment. If you have that discovery call up front and you don't know if they're just on the fence, bringing a property management partner in on it with you can be a really good thing. Now, I know some may be hesitant because if the property manager, like myself, like we also do sales. So you may not want that property manager to quote unquote take your lead down the road or sell the house out from under you. Well, of course, there would be a mutual trust, right? And a mutual agreement that comes in. So we really work hard with we get property management referrals from agents all the time, but 5 years down the road, we're still maintaining that. And, we give the client that option to go back if needed. Cause I know that that's something that has come up, when I receive referrals from other companies. So when you are running or kind of finding your property management partner, I need to find a better word of that. That's hard to say. You really want to treat it as a partnership, just like any other trusted vendor and resource. find the property management company where you can maybe be featured on a newsletter, or, hey, here's some resources that you can, whether it's a fall guide or, home, should you rent or should you buy, kind of home selling tips to your property management company for them to then send out to their database. Because if they have 500 some houses, 100 some houses, that's homeowners, tenants, all in the realm of either being an investor and a new home buyer, or whatever. So they're all ready to make a move at some point. That lease is expiring. What are they going to do? So that's something that I also implemented, was the conversations that we're constantly having with tenants and homeowners or investors that you may partner with. If you work with an investor and they have their own property management company, hey, if it's okay with you, can I contact your tenant and make sure it's okay? And they consent to having that information sent out, and kind of just starting to forge relationships that way. It's kind of just an extra way of prospecting with people who are already, I think all renters for the most part have thought about, like, maybe I should buy, but they really just don't know. But it's a long game. So they're committed to a year lease or more. So it really takes a lot of that nurturing and probably a lot more work, but having that in with a property manager can really help. Does anybody have any questions or anything they'd like to add, or any situations where they may have needed some kind of resource in the property management realm?
One of the things that Leo shared with us in Dallas was, in the market that we're in right now, to try to kind of stay in the process, right, would be to execute that that listing agreement, and also to go ahead and have them set up on the rental path as well, like at a certain point. Like, how would you recommend navigating that if the agent really wants to hand it over to property management, obviously for marketing, screening, all of that stuff? Like, what does that conversation look like if you're doing it at the very, like, onset of the listing process? Because what he's trying to avoid, right, what we're trying to avoid is them just moving on to the next real estate agent when it doesn't sell. Like, being able to say, hey, look, it didn't sell, here's another alternative. What would you say that conversation, like, looks like if you're working with a property management company?
So a lot of time, and it's most important now with the market that we're in. Sorry, with the market that we're in, because I think a lot of people are inadvertently kind of thrown into this rental investor mindset that they weren't initially playing with. So when they bought their house, they're like, yeah, we'll be able to sell and move on and carry on. I don't think that that was a mindset that they originally had. So I think kind of adding that piece, depending on where the market goes, and just having that conversation, like, hey, worst case scenario, I know you want to move, and you have X, Y, and Z plan. Have you considered renting out your home? And I can show you what that may look like. So when I have somebody come to me and say, hey, I may have a property management lead for you, I'm going on a listing appointment, can you run some numbers? Absolutely, happy to run numbers. And then also, I send a boards page with our like marketing materials, basically, so that you have something tangible to go off of, and the stats and everything. But it really depends on that certain homeowner's situation. If they, some of them, like where I work with, we have to have that conversation up front, because they're getting PCS orders less than 2 years after they bought the house, and they're coming to the closing table regardless with $10,000 to $15,000 because they didn't put anything down. It's a VA loan. So I just kind of make it part of my presentation. And if you feel more comfortable, and sometimes having that partner there, if you know that that client is very much in a very tight situation, they don't have much flexibility on their timeline or their bottom line, their net sheet, kind of having that backup person there, meeting in person, can give them confidence to expedite, the process. Okay, we already have a plan B in place. We know this is worst case scenario. You've already met your property management partner, me. We reviewed all options, but we'll of course go through the sales route, see what happens. But I think just kind of being upfront with it and being prepared, because the rental market too is just as wonky as the sales market. So we've had a very slow PCS season, which is when military members move. So we're usually running around with our heads cut off every summer. But even now, it's been a very slow rental market. I think everybody's just kind of hanging tight, not really knowing what to do, but just being able to present all the options is kind of the best way to go. I'm not really even sure if that answered your question.
No, it did. That's great.
Yeah. Does anybody have any interest of adding a property management layer to your business as almost like an additional service, additional stream of income, or maybe something that you've never even thought about? I'm not sure, but I don't know. Like, Anne, would you want to get back into property management?
Yeah, Anne, would
So
you like to get back into
Okay,
property
yeah.
management?
Or did you
I've
run for the
actually,
hills?
no, I've been kicking that idea around. So I have kind of a unique position in that I live part-time in North Carolina and I live part-time in Alabama. And I have a really great EXP partner here in Alabama that I've done referrals with. And her and I have talked a little bit about doing some property management because we're in a really heavy military market. Um, So that's something that we've talked about, and we're trying to like dig into how that works with both of us being EXP agents,
Yeah.
um, and kind of folding a property management side here in Alabama into her business and me running it with her with some of the experience I have. But it would be long term. I'm not doing short term like ever again. Never
Yeah.
again.
We've actually tossed around the idea of doing short-term rentals because we have an Airbnb personally down in Carolina Beach. And
Hmm.
I know Eli on Allison's team, he's rolling with a short-term rental business. And I have no idea of even how that works outside of like vacation rental. But yeah, I mean, I think um it's it's something that can be very beneficial, and I'm a product of that. As you know, yes, property management isn't my favorite thing, but that's why I leverage my team. I made the hires. I'm not very hands-on the property management side. I kind of oversee, the marketing, the branding. I'll go on the new property management appointments. Sometimes, so many times I have two listings coming up where they're like, hey, we want to rent out our home. And then they realize that the rental numbers also don't favor them, neither do the sales numbers. So they're in a lose-lose situation. But we weigh the pros and cons, run the sales and rental numbers. And now I have two listings coming up just from a property management they reached out for property management and turned into sales. So being able to convert, I think just expanding your knowledge outside of the sales market and being able to understand whether you go into property management or not, but going into those appointments, it wouldn't hurt to just kind of be like, what's the rental market like in case that comes up? I know these sellers are in a pickle. And if I need to tag in my partner for property management, we can do that. So I really think there is some value to it. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's just kind of the hand that I was dealt, very fortunately, because I didn't have to do a lot of prospecting. So I'm a seasoned agent in that, in general, but I'm kind of going back to the basics where I'm like, how do I prospect and make phone calls and do all the things? So that's kind of like a new thing because it really has fueled my business, just rolling off property management. Now, especially if you're in a military market, you run into people who have zero intentions of really making investments. They get orders last minute. They really wanted to sell. They wanted to stay. They don't want to move. They're leaving in 30 days. So it's a lot of tough conversations too that are had, but then they start to see the benefit of investing. And now when they PCS different areas, now they want to buy, and then they keep bouncing around and building their portfolio. So it's really kind of fun to see that happen for sure.
I think the property management side is super underutilized, like in a sales aspect too, because even for like our market does have, like on the Crystal Coast has a lot of rentals and investors, and I mean, it's really what I love to do and work with. But you can partner with property managers in the area and get proposals to put in your documents for your listing. So you have that
Mhm.
information ahead of time for buyers who are like, how is this going to work within my portfolio? How much, what's the
Yeah.
return, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, I mean there's a lot of different angles that you can go with it based on your market. So usually, like of course, coastal military towns, there is that need year round. So like our niche market, you know, Raleigh may be doing some maybe kind of slower, but we're popping off because it's PCS season and we're just an hour and a half south, lower price point, but things are still moving because people are PCSing and moving here. It's government funded, but everyone's using their VA loans, which just side note on that, do not be afraid to work with buyers or accept offers that are VA loans. They go through plenty of times with little hiccups. I know that, if you get multiple offers, you're like, ick, a VA loan, ew, but no, they work just as smoothly as conventional loans, just maybe a few different changes, but that's just my little plug on that. So the thing with that I've really learned and things that I'm still working on is still continuing to bridge that gap. We will have property or tenants who are just all of a sudden, hey, I bought a house. We're under contract. We need to have the lease. And we're like, first of all, thanks for calling me. And second of all, no, you're in a lease. Like you just renewed for another year. Now they're doubling up on their mortgage payments and their rent until it's re-rented. So that's another reason why partnering with a property management company is, hey, let's keep these people educated. Let's avoid these issues. If you're working with a buyer that is, or excuse me, a tenant who's renting, get in touch with that property manager and see what their lease outlines, see if there is an out. The state of North Carolina lease is different, but if there were with a private landlord, maybe they wrote it on a napkin for all I know, but connecting with that landlord and really knowing your buyer's rights to avoid that issue that comes up a lot. But it's, those are just a bunch of little things that can kind of come up, but you can add value just by providing just the different options and knowledge. And I think that's all that really sellers and tenants or buyers want, is just to know all of the options. Even if they, their heart is on buying or selling, at least they know, like, hey, I'm going to be coming out of pocket $100 each month because of the rental value, or I'm coming to closing $10,000 at one time. Some people were just like, hey, wash my hands of it, or I can only afford the $100 a month. I'm, coming out of pocket each month. But unfortunately, those are some of the conversations that need to be had too. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of all that I have. If you are someone who is interested in talking more about the property management side of things, how to leverage that, how to interview a property management partner that you kind of want to team up with, I can help you as well. You can send me an email. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of, I hope this was helpful, or I don't. There's just a lot. I guess there's just so much
Super
that I
helpful.
could really like word vomit about it. But I tried to just try to keep it short. But like Anna said, I actually am working on a guide that, talks about how I leveraged property management into sales and let it fuel that business. And then also, if anybody's interested in jumping in property management, laying those foundations, integrating it into your current systems. Like we use Follow Up Boss in our sales, with sales and property management, and they talk to each other. And they're all on their own drip campaigns, but so you can easily track and do all that too. But just making sure that everything is a nice flow if you do get into it.
Well,
So,
thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. That was amazing, Leanna.
oh, thank you. If you guys, yeah, feel free to reach out for anything at all. I'm your gal.
She's your gal. Leanna, and yeah, give her a follow on social media and McQuilkin, McQuilkin
I
Real
know. It's my in-laws' last name, and it's
and
so annoying
for
to say.
yeah, so
But it's
Leanna
McQuilkin Real
Ashley
Estate.
for
Yes.
real estate, McQuilkin for property management. If you're local and looking for a good partner, she's our gal.
Yeah. Bye.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. I think next week
Thank
I'm
you.
doing circle
Thank you so much.
prospecting, and yeah, see you guys next week.